Hey folks, it's Frithgar here, how you doing? Welcome back to Farming Simulator 22 here in the pristine, untouched wilderness of the Calmlands. There we go. Right, now, if you're paying attention to what you're doing, you want to try and drive on the straw as little as possible, because it just makes it a little bit easier for it to be picked up by the person on the baler. But also, you do have to keep in mind that if it rains and the straw gets wet, the bit that's been driven on takes longer to dry out than the bit that hasn't been driven on. If it's not been driven on, it sits on top of the stubble. I'll show you. Jump out a minute. Right, you have a look here. If we pop a squat here. If you have a look, you can see that stubble sticking up. Now, in real life, the stubble is closer together than this, or at least it is here in the UK, where we have a more intensive farming. So the straw sits on top of the stubble, and it keeps it off the ground, for the most part. Not always. It does sometimes sit on the ground, depending on how much traffic has been before, well, as it was sort of being cut, that sort of thing. There are factors, okay? There are factors. But generally, it sits on top of the stubble. So if it rains and then you get a nice bit of, a bit of a breeze or anything like that, the wind is able to get through the straw because it's still sort of fairly fluffed up, and it will help to dry it out, and it dries out fairly quickly. If, however, you have a bit that the tractor is driven on, like here, you can see we've got these tyre marks and so on there, it's driven right over the top of that, which means it's squashed it flat down into the ground and also removed all of the air, the gaps in between the straw, which means then that it is going to take a lot longer to dry out. And because it takes a lot longer to dry out, it's a bit of a pain. So then you've got to go along with a hay turner or anything like that, and you've got to turn it over and fluff it up a bit. Now, usually you use a rake to do that, so that would be, well, most of you know what a rake is by now, so we don't dispense it, but you've got a windrower. You would just have one of these and you go over it. And I used to do it with a really small tractor, and this is probably a bit too big. I don't think it was even that size. It would have been smaller than that one. I think we've got a mod here somewhere for it. That's 4 meters wide. I don't have a mod here, so that's probably the smaller. It wasn't like one of these. This one's 3.4 meters. That one's 4.7. So it would have been a bit like this one, but possibly even smaller than this. The little rake that I used to use. And I had it on a small tractor as well. And the tractor that I used was well, it was a small compact tractor, so I suppose it would have been more similar to this one without a cab. That's except that it wouldn't have been 70 to 112 horsepower. I know that much because it was a long time ago. So it would have been a much smaller. It would have been more similar to sort of something like this. It didn't have a cab on it. Just trying to see if there's any kind of example of because a small garden tractor is what, well, they're not necessarily a garden tractor, but they're a mini tractor. And they are really small. They're really compact things. They're little tiny things. I think it would be that. It's not a lot different in size to that one. It's actually smaller than a 165. This is a bit of a beast of a tractor compared to the one that I was using. But you can see the scale of it compared to the seat right there. So, yeah, it would have been smaller than that one. I think we're looking at something along the lines of one of these. I mean, this is an articulated tractor right here, so it wasn't an articulated tractor, but that would be more the kind of size of the thing that I was driving, and had that little rake on the back. And I used to have to go around the fields of straw, and went after it had rained, and anywhere that well, quite often it would just be I'd have to go around all of the fields of straw and basically fluff up the straw. So just go along with the rake and drive up and down all of the rows and fluff it all up again. And yeah, that was not the best of jobs, because you got an open cab and straw produces a lot of dust. You know, that fella there, he's sitting pretty, he's quite happy because he's stuck in his cab and all that dust is just going elsewhere. He's got a bit of air conditioning on, it's nice and cool and comfortable in there. If you're sitting on an open cab tractor and you're fluffing up the straw behind you, there's a lot of chaff and bits of dust and all sorts in there, and then when you pass over it, that all gets fluffed up. And if the wind is in the right direction, if the wind's coming from behind you, all of that goes all over you. And it's uncomfortable, to say the least. Right? That gets into your shirt, it goes down the back of your t-shirt, it gets literally everywhere, in every part. There is no part of you that does not get the straw dust into. You cannot escape it. There is no escape. There's no freedom from it. You are absolutely covered in straw dust. Right? There's no ifs, buts, or maybes. You are coated from head to toe in straw dust. Now, if the wind is in the right direction, it's fine, but if you have got a breeze, it doesn't matter how much of a breeze you've got. If you're driving all the way around the outside of the field, at some point the wind will be taking all of that dust and putting it squarely all over you, which is charming, absolutely charming and lovely, and yeah, there's a reason I didn't really like doing that job. I actually preferred to do the handballing of small bales than doing the job where you sat on the open cab. Now, if it wasn't an open cab tractor, if I had a different tractor, that was altogether different. However, no, I don't do that. He can drive back up across the field a minute. There was a couple of other small-ish tractors, but they usually weren't available. So if you had a tractor about that size and you needed to go and turn a field, and you needed to go and rake the field, and you had a rake that was about that size, that could go on that tractor without any trouble, right? It worked just fine on that tractor, and you could drag it up and down the field, and you would use maybe £2 worth of fuel, £3 even, right? You 2 or 3 pounds worth of fuel. That's all it would use, because those things do not use very much fuel at all. If you don't have that tractor available, and so you're having to go and use one of the other tractors, say this one here is 175 horsepower, it's a 7810, so that's a big old tractor, that is. That's a big tractor. I mean, you can get an idea of the scale. You've got 4 steps to climb up to get into the cab, and then you're all the way up there. Like, if you stand next to the cab, your head is sort of, well, my head's coming up to about here somewhere. That's a big tractor. You're not using just 2 or 3 quid's worth of fuel in this thing, right? It's not 2 or 3 pounds. You're more like 30 or 40 pounds worth of fuel at the bare minimum to go and do the same job. Plus, you got wear and tear, and this is a big machine. This has got a lot of other wear and tear on it as well, and service costs on this machine run into the thousands. Service costs on the other machine run into the dozens of pounds. So if you're deciding whether or not you want to spend dozens of pounds or hundreds of pounds, if not maybe even a few thousand, it's kind of a no-brainer. Which is why the poor sap who ended up having to do the raking in the field usually ended up with a little small tiny tractor with no cab. That is why. It's purely a cost thing. Right? It's got nothing to do with whether or not the person in charge of dishing out these jobs liked or disliked the person that was going to do the work. That had absolutely nothing to do with it. It's purely a cost-effective thing. I mean, yes, there was one place I worked that I did have to go and do jobs on a small tractor like that from time to time, purely because it's cost-effective, and I've done that in many places, many farms I've worked at. I've had to do pretty much the same thing. You go and you just have to use the machine that's there available, and it makes sense to use the little tiny machine because that's kind of what you need to do. However, You then have the boss's son, who gets to go and sit in the really, really big, powerful other tractor. And it's not so much the fact the tractor is really big and powerful, it's the fact that that tractor is like sitting in the... You basically, you got a... it's the difference between sitting on a hard wooden stool and sitting in a very large, very plush, comfortable, expensive chair. You know, one has got distinct merits over the other, and so the boss's son gets to go and drive that tractor when he does the job, because he doesn't want to drive the small tractor. If I try to come out with the same argument, well, too bad, get on with it. Harsh. I know he's the boss's son, but still, he's supposed to treat people the same. I have worked in other places where the boss's son does not get any special treatment, and always used to get a little bit sort of irate about that, but that's how it should be. That's how the world should work. Just because you're the boss's son doesn't mean that you should be getting special treatment that costs the business a load of extra money. Anyway, I'm not bitter about it. I'm really not. I'm not bitter and twisted and angry about that. I'm not carrying that rage for that. I really haven't been carrying the rage for many years. I'm not like that. I'm not. I'm really not. Do you believe me yet? Have I said that enough times that it's actually believable? I don't know if it is or not. What was I doing up here? Oh, it's sorghum that was coming in. I was looking at this, and I was like, what was the other grain that was coming in? It's sorghum that was coming in. That's what we were doing. I'm going to make oat flour. So we got 15 going into 19 on that one. We're going to activate that there. There we go. The windmill started up. And we got 13,000 litres of oat flour there to start off with. And we got 3,000 litres here. So what I'm going to do... Actually, you know what I am going to do? I'm going to just take a pallet here, because we want to move these out of the way. We want that oat flour to be able to go through. And the combine's busy working at the moment anyway, so it's not like he's going to be doing anything. So we'll stack that one back over there. Worker at the mill is very, very busy. Moving these pallets back, ready for winter. We got premium flour right here. We got a lot of premium flour. I think that when it comes to winter, we are going to make a small fortune out of this lot. How much does flour sell for? I can't remember. There. 700. Right. I don't know how many pallets we got at the moment. But I mean, if we're looking at 700 a pallet, and we've got all of these pallets here, what have I got per line here at the moment? It's just pop that one in there. Yeah, like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, right. Well, there's 15 pallets that we've got, and we're going to have a lot more. So there's 15... Well, we've got 17 there. There's probably going to be more than that. How much have we got in here? Oat flour. It says oat flour running. Flour, 629, so we're on our way to get... So, I mean, we're not far off of 20 pallets here at the moment. So that's 14,000 euros worth of flour that we'll be able to sell. And I reckon with what we've just got, plus our continued supplies coming from the greenhouse, we're going to be looking at something close to 30 pallets. Maybe even more than that by the time we are ready to sell in the winter. So we're looking at 21,000 euros-ish from selling flour. 21,000 is not too shabby. 657. Right, so I'll just move this one, and then we're kind of done with having to deal with this for a second. 21,000 euros coming in that we can expect during the winter, and we've already got 17,000. Yeah, we'll take a little bit out for doing a few repairs here and there, but generally speaking, I don't think that's going to be too much. And yeah, it's just trying to even that out a little bit. So, That's putting us on very close to 40 grand. Then we've got the pigs themselves that we can do some work with, and they will end up sort of getting us the rest of what we're after. You come down here and just stop there a second. Combine is finished. Right, we now have a field of grain. There is a little tiny bit of oat down there. So we had a bit of a yield loss. We had a 60% yield bonus off of this field, and total that we can get is 100% bonus on this. So we did lose a total of 20% of the grain that we could get. And yeah, I know that, you know, it said 60%, and that's the total bonus that you can get. You can get a total bonus of 100%, which, look at it as that means that we get a total of 200% grain off of the field, and we ended up with 160%. So we lost a total of 20%, not 40%. Just trust me on this for those of you who aren't so good with maths. So we've lost 20% of the potential that we could have, as a fifth of the total grain that we could have had out of here. Now, we had about 13,500 come out of the trailer just now, and now we've got this bit just here, which is... 1 minute, I'm just going to bring that one down, and then I'm... you know, I don't need to fold this because we're going straight over to the next field. What I do want to do is I just want to jump into here. So there's 2,200. I can't remember, it's like 13,300 maybe, so I would say we're looking at 15,500 plus 20% on top of that, so that would be an additional, what would 20% of 15,000, well, 20% of 15,500, well, it would be 2, 3, about 3,100. Well, if it's 15,500, it would be 3,100. 3,100 litres of grain that we lost out of that. And now I want to do that calculation. So 3,100, hang on a minute. I can't do this in my head. I probably could if I had enough time. So all I need to do to work it out is I'm figuring out how much flour we've lost out on. So 3,100, and if you go into, hang on, we'll go in here and I will show you what I'm using for my calculations. So we go into the oat flour. So you want to divide 3,100 by 15 right here. Oops. 3,100 divided by 15. That gives us 206.666. So we say 207. To make it simple. So 207 times 19, that gives us 3,933 flour. Now, that's such a small amount, and we would have actually had a little bit more than the 3,500. We will round that to 4,000 litres. It's only it's only 67 litres in it, so we will say 4,000 litres, which is 4 times what we get off of here. So you got in the flour, and then we go to the best price, which was 730. So 4 times 730 is 2,800, 2,920. 2,920 euros we've missed out on because we didn't plough this field. And a plough costs us... How much would a plough be? I mean, we'd want a reasonable sized plough. You don't want something that's really small. It's going to take absolutely ages. So the bare minimum we'd want would be that one, which is a 2.5 meter plough. It's still going to take a while, but it's the kind of job you just leave running through the winter. That's the same one there. Actually, it's the same plough, so we'd go with that one because it's a little bit cheaper. It's 14,000. Right. 14 grand for a plough. We would have gotten ourselves an additional almost 3,000 euros. So if we round, I'm doing a lot of rounding here, but if we say 3,000 euros, actually I don't want to go back into the field. We want to take this one over to the next field. 3,000 euros. is what we would have gotten for the additional stuff if we'd ploughed this field. That's 3,000. And then you've also got to take into account the amount of money that it would have taken to pay the wages for the person doing the ploughing. So we probably would have lost 1,000 in wages on that job, because that would have taken a long time to do. So I'm being generous on there, but allow 1,000. I mean, it may have been less than that, it may have been more than that, I don't know, but we'll just call it a nice even 1,000. So that's 2,000. So we would have gotten 2,000 euros extra off of that field if we had ploughed it, and the plough cost 12,000. So it would take 6 years to pay for the plough. Now, in the grand scheme of things, when you're trying to figure out costs and so on, if something can pay for itself in just 6 years, so 12,000 divided by the 2,000 profit that we would have made, that's 6 years. If a machine could pay for itself in 6 years, it's actually pretty good. That's not bad. If it's completely paid for itself in just 6 years, I would say that that is a reasonable investment. Now, I know some farmers that would say that a machine should pay for itself in 5 years or less, but there are others who work on a 10 years or less policy. It does depend how often you want to be replacing your machinery, because obviously you need to work on the costs and so on. Some places I've worked at, they always have new machinery because they're more reliable, they don't break down so often, and they work on, if it doesn't pay for itself in 5 years, we need to reevaluate why we have this machine in the first place, what we're doing with it, why do we need it. Other places, they work on a longer time scale. So it does depend on the sort of place that you're working on, and a few other factors as well. But right now we can say that the the plough that we're looking at would pay for itself on, just based on that one field over there, potentially could pay for itself in 6 years. Now, obviously, for us, that's not an instant amount of money that is going to come in, and it's going to take us a little while for us, you know, that's a lot of gameplay. 6 years in the game is a lot of gameplay. So for gameplay purposes, we probably want it to pay for itself a bit quicker, but we do have more crops that we want to pay for, and with more crops that we're processing, so we'll, like, pretty soon we'll have lost the yield hit on all of our fields, and then it's just going to be one field each per year after that. So it would actually end up, I think, paying for itself a bit quicker than that. It just depends on when we would first buy it, and also you've then got to take into account the fact that that yield loss, unless we go and plough the field, is going to be cumulative. So the next year we're going to have the same yield loss on there again, and we won't have had to plough the field again. So we won't have the expense for the wages going out, but we still have the yield loss. Or we'd still have the yield gain if we had the plough. So you plough it once, and then several years later... Wait, why did... Oh, it didn't pick up because I've got the combine selected. That's what I wanted to do there. I was supposed to do that when I was reversing back around. So we've ploughed the fields, but because we haven't planted corn in the field again, we don't need to go and plough it a second time. We only need to do that after we've planted corn in the field, which means that the net profit that we stand to gain from using that plough is not just the single year. Like, you've also got the following year, where you've got the following few years. I've gone and planted oats in that field over there, and we reckoned that it was about £2,000 profit. Well, the next time we're planting barley, and that's a little bit more complex to figure out, because the barley, we're not going on the sale of the barley, we're not going on the sale of the flour either. We're putting it through pigs, and then the pigs, the profit that we get from them. So we're getting less food, and then you've got to sort of factor in other costs and so on. But the general gist of it is, the settings that we've got in the game, if we were to run all the costs and everything, the most profitable thing that we can do is put the barley through the pigs. You make more money out of selling pigs on growing your own food than you do by turning the barley into flour. I've no idea what happens if you process the flour further after that, But definitely selling the grain alone or just processing into flour and selling, you do make more money by putting it through pigs. So we stand, in theory, to gain even more profit from buying the plough, which means that effectively the plough is going to take 6 years to pay for itself based on that field up there on oats, turning it into flour. In actual fact, with the grain yields and everything that we would boost by buying the plough across the entire farm, we would be probably looking at that plough being able to pay for itself in as little as 3 years. That's a guess on my part. Obviously, we'd need to do a whole load of work with crunching numbers and things like that, just to make absolutely certain that that was the case. But I have no reason to suspect that we would get a different result than roughly 3 years. That's my guess. We wouldn't pay for it in a year. You wouldn't get your money back in a single year. But I would guess, going on the numbers that we have in the game, we're on the hard mode difficulty here. I would say 3 years wouldn't be an out-of-the-way guess for how long it would take for us to get our money back from buying a plough. I don't know. Get in the comment section. For those of you who do play the game and you like to crunch numbers and stuff, do you think I've got an accurate sort of guess on this, or do you think that maybe my numbers are also out a little bit? Have I made any mistakes in my calculations and guesses? I'm always interested to find this one out. I like maths. I've always enjoyed maths. I like the challenge of it. So if I'm making a really glaringly obvious mistake somewhere here, then please let me know. If I've got some of the numbers wrong, let me know. I haven't rehearsed this at all, so I may have gotten things horribly, horribly wrong somewhere. I hope I haven't. I really hope I haven't. I like to do the math stuff, and it's fun. I also like to occasionally drop in on Mr. Maltese Panda when he's doing a live stream, because those of you who don't know, Mr. Maltese Panda... Unfortunately, folks, that is all we have got time for today. A massive thank you to everybody who has earned their way into the Great Book of Names. To find out some more details about all the names coming past, please head into the description and click on the link to the Discord. It's a link to another video. The link is on the other video. Please also consider checking out the links there for Nitrado, who provide gaming servers for games like Farming Simulator, Minecraft, Ark, and several others. And there's also Fanatical, who will help support your gaming habit by providing you with cheap games and also giving me a small commission on anything that you buy using my link. If you've enjoyed this particular video, then please head down below and give us a like. And if you really enjoyed it, then please tell your friends all about me. Get them to come and watch as well. That would be awesome. And until next time, thank you very much for watching. This is Frithgar. Goodbye, and see you later.